On this episode of Headstrong, I've teamed up with Actors Warehouse. Now, Actors Warehouse is your one-stop shop for building new and existing skills and progressing your career as a performer. Actors Warehouse have some incredible workshops covering everything from audition technique to self-taping at home, Shakespeare, accents, you name it. Actors Warehouse has got you covered, whatever your skill level or ability. As well as these workshops, Actors Warehouse writes, creates and edits personalised showreel scenes. They understand that everyone needs this high-quality showreel. It's essential in the industry. And that is why Actors Warehouse take the time to get to know you on a personal level before writing and filming showreel scenes designed to showcase the talent you want casting directors to see. Follow them today on @ActorsWarehouse on Instagram and send them a direct message to find out more. Alternatively, you can visit their website, www.actorswarehouse.co.uk. Also, go check out the Headstrong Instagram page because we are running an exclusive competition giveaway for a chance to win a one-on-one workshop with Actors Warehouse completely tailored to your needs. @Headstrong Podcast. Hello, you're listening to Headstrong, hosted by me, Louis Strong. Every individual on this earth has a unique journey and story. On Headstrong, I sit down with individuals in the public eye to talk about exactly that, their unique story. And I want to talk to them about their careers, their childhoods, their lives, and the highs and lows of everything that has happened to them. And I do this because I want you, the listener, to not only hear these inspiring stories and their interests, but I also want you to understand what it means to be headstrong. On this episode of Headstrong, I sat down with actor Celine Buckens. I've known Celine for a few years now, and I wanted to talk to Celine about her career as a child actor and also her immensely successful career to date already in programmes such as Rein and Warrior. I also talked about the creative industries and her adoration for the film industry and indeed the creativity within film. We had a hugely interesting conversation and I hope you really enjoy this episode. If you do, feel free to share it with your family, your friends, onto your social media and beyond. Every listener helps this podcast, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. Celine, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me on Headstrong today. I very much appreciate it.
My pleasure.
How are you? How's it all going? Because we find ourselves now in about halfway through the second lockdown as we record this, so mid-November. Where are you at the moment?
I'm at home in London, which is where I spent the whole of lockdown. So, yeah.
But the first one as well?
The first one as well, yeah. We actually moved into this place 2 weeks before lockdown happened. So sort of, it feels very lived in now. It feels like we've lived here for years and years because we've probably spent the same amount of time that we would spend here over like 3 years.
Oh my word, you know those four walls very well.
Yeah, very, very well. Very well.
In that first lockdown, I certainly found it quite interesting to have that. I mean, I know that it was a long time, like almost 3 months, and I found that time quite reflective and quite enjoyable to an extent anyway. How did you find that time, because everything literally shut down so drastically? Did you enjoy that time for potentially self-reflection or an enjoyable time to maybe have a break from things, or were you a little reluctant to do that and wanted to keep things going?
So I think I deal quite well with being on my own. Like I kept in touch with people quite like intermittently, but I actually weirdly didn't find the lockdown that different being between jobs as an actor, because it's so, the way that the industry works, you can be working for 5 months on something and then have 4 months off, and so having to sort of self-motivate and be like, okay, well, what am I going to do with my time is something that I think actors are quite used to. So I carried on sort of business as usual, and I was I started writing about a year ago. Started with short films and then wrote a pilot, which I finished in February, I think. And then I was writing feature in lockdown. And so I felt quite normal. Well, I felt like the normal version of me between jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting that you started your writing. Was that because, again, I mean, as you probably mentioned there, that it's something to fill your time productively during, in between jobs? How have you found that writing experience? Have you kind of just picked up a pen and had a go, or had you had some kind of knowledge and experience of how to do that?
So I think it's more that I really love the medium of film, as pretentious as that sounds. And I started acting when I was very young, and I think I just sort of assumed that that would be my role in the film and TV industry, would be as an actor. And then having a bit of time between jobs made me think, oh, well, maybe there's some other aspects of it that I maybe be good at, or that I'm interested in, at least. So I guess that's why I started. But I think it's also marrying. I studied history at uni, and I mean, it's a very different kind of writing. It's writing essays, but there's an element of story and history, and
100%.
yeah, and I mean, like essays, like you're putting pen to paper. So yeah, so I guess that's how I decided to start writing, with the objective of making my own short films. And then in lockdown, sorry, what was your question? Why? Yeah, I think I've answered it.
Dare I ask what the pilot was about and what your feature was about as well? Because that's quite ambitious as well to commit to a pilot. I mean, of course, 3 months of a lockdown is a great time to start writing because there's not a lot else to do. But that's
I started. No, the pilot came before lockdown. The pilot, I co-wrote it with a very good friend of mine, who writes, who's an actor and writer, but probably a more experienced writer than I am. So I thought, for my first sort of long-ish, a 50-page thing, writing with someone else was a good idea. And that was a dark comedy about pickup artists, because I just found the whole world of pickup artistry so weird.
Wow.
Yeah, but also quite funny in quite in quite tragic way. I both sort of empathize with the people who sign up for these pickup artist lessons, and also completely abhor the rampant sexism that there is involved within pickup artistry. So I was quite intrigued by it. So it's a dark comedy thriller based on that.
Epic. Have you sent that off to production houses and the like?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of people read it and liked it, but it was a first stab. So I think probably nothing will come of it now. But
always one for the locker. Keep it in the locker.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you write as well from a personal experience with the intention of like seeing yourself in it as well? Because I always find that helps me slightly when I pick up or start typing. Keep saying pick up a pen. Obviously, I don't write with a pen anymore. But
I do.
Do you? You write?
Yeah, well, not solely, but yeah, I do.
Oh, I love that. Very old school.
I know, very old school.
But yeah, I find it helps that I kind of try and think of myself with one role in it, no matter how big or small it is, just to try and help me to actually kind of feel where it might be going. Because otherwise, I sometimes struggle with that. Do you think like that as well, or not really?
I don't know whether I necessarily think of myself, but I definitely use people either in my life or other actors or even characters that I can draw on. But it's funny, when I write for myself, I think I can fall into like a bit of insularity. I definitely need to use my experience. Maybe experiences is the wrong word, because a lot of what I write about I haven't personally experienced, but maybe I use my flaws, and I use maybe the less attractive parts of my personality to flesh out the characters in an honest way. But yeah, I don't write for myself.
No,
I don't write so I just directed a short film, which I finished a rough assembly last night.
Exciting.
Very exciting, but also very a learning curve for sure. But I wasn't in that. Well, actually, I'm an extra in it but that was more a product of lockdown, trying to keep numbers on set down.
Like most in lockdown, I probably watched far too much TV than I could probably say I've watched for my entire life. Do you have any notable mentions that you watched? Obviously, you love, as you say, you love your film, and from the poster on the wall, I can tell as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. In Bruges, it's a classic.
Absolutely.
So I did watch a little bit of TV. I watched Succession, which I loved, and I May Destroy You. But then mostly I watched film. I sort of saw it as an opportunity to really delve into like all these classics and all these films that had been on my watch list forever. And I mean, my watch list was like, I don't know, so long. You could literally like scroll down forever on the notes page of my phone. So I just cracked on with films, and I think I've watched like a film a day.
Wow.
I've watched a lot of movies.
Okay, you must have a notable mention that I haven't seen and a number of people have not seen that they need to watch. Got to be something you can pluck out.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I've got loads, but I'm trying to think. I always struggle to pick out like one favorite.
Yeah, it's unfair.
I might just go within films that I've watched recently.
Okay.
I watched a film a couple of days ago called The Girl on the Bridge.
Okay.
Which is a French film, and it is absolutely brilliant. It's shot in black and white, and it's very, very, very funny, very well written, but also completely. It's about a knife thrower, and I don't know if that's a technical word, but and it's basically a love story, but a very sort of very slick and very very sort of acerbic humor. I highly recommend that.
Okay, well, add that to the watch list, but I will most definitely be putting on the subtitles. But for you, I know you don't need it.
Yeah, well, I actually did watch it with subtitles, but that was because the version I had didn't have the option to take it off.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
We have to talk about your latest role in Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
You play Sophie. How did you find that experience? Do you want to just explain a little bit about the series?
It was really such a great experience. So I joined in the second season. It's based off Bruce Lee's writings. So he wrote this sort of outline for a TV show, which takes place in San Francisco in the late 1870s, beginning of the 1880s. And it's basically covers the run up to the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which was, completely racist and banned all immigration from China, and was very, very was a very controversial topic at the time. And in San Francisco, you had a big Chinese population linked to the gold rush, but also because that was the port of entry coming from China. And there were Tongs, which were basically crime families who were basically gangs. And there was a huge amount of violence there. Within Chinatown, there was also opium, prostitution. And so the series takes place in this world. And so it's Shannon Lee, who's Bruce Lee's daughter, is the producer on it. And so it's sort of bringing his vision to life. And the role that I play in it is the mayor's sister-in-law. So I played Joanna Vanderam's character's sister, and who's an idealist and very plucky, thinks she knows more about the world than maybe she does. And she gets involved with a man called Dylan Leary, who is part of the Irish working class who want the Chinese out because there's they're stealing our jobs argument, which sounds quite familiar.
Well, if that hasn't painted the picture for anyone listening, I don't know what will. This episode is sponsored by Actors Warehouse. Now, Actors Warehouse is your one-stop shop for building new and existing skills and progressing your career as a performer. They have one-to-one workshops, and they are the perfect way to build up the skills you need to succeed as a performer. The best part is, you can tailor the workshop to specifically hit the areas you need work on or to improve. Actors Warehouse also do personalised show reels, and they are the perfect way for you to take control of the way casting directors view your talent. Are you stuck in a typecast? Or have you always wanted to take on a certain character or role and never had the chance to? Well, this is the perfect, highly collaborative opportunity for you to explore what you can do as an actor and fast-track your way into the eyes of a casting director. Now, Actors Warehouse puts the client at the forefront of their business, and that is exactly why they take the time to get to know you and your unique requirements as an actor before delivering their one-to-one workshops or creating these personalised showreel scenes. And I believe this personal touch is one of the reasons that they're so fantastic. Go follow them today on Instagram at Actors Warehouse and send them a message to find out more. Or visit their website, www.actorswarehouse.co.uk. You talk so well about that, like history in general. It's clearly such a love for you. How do you find it playing a role, as you said there, where it's kind of set in a time that is so non-relatable to the present day? How do you go about doing your research into playing those kind of roles, and in particular Sophie?
Well, you say non-relatable, but
I mean in the context of, you know what I mean, in the context of society.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't find it that. When I approach a historical role, I don't approach it from a necessarily period point of view. I try and find the common points in the personality of the character and how the character behaves. But I do think that I do really like stories that are set in the past, because the past is so rich and there's so many stories that are already out there. And I did study history, so. So yeah, I don't find it necessarily harder to play in something that's historical than something that takes place in the present day. I think from an acting point of view, it's quite similar.
How do you prep for your roles? I mean, depending on how much time you have, I suppose.
Yeah, it's really finding the common points between the character and myself. There's a lot of thinking that goes into it, a lot of, okay, how is this situation similar to something that I've been in, or how is this reaction, how would I react in that way in my life? What would need to happen for me to react that way, and really putting myself in their shoes in that way. But then also, I think I sort of prep, and then get to the day and I'm ready to throw it all out the window. Because,
of course, you have to be open-minded.
Yeah, exactly. And it depends on, I mean, you rarely get to rehearse in film and TV, but which is a shame. But it does mean that when you get there on the day, you don't know necessarily how the other actor is going to play their scene. And so, yeah, you need to remain open to that and react in the moment.
Absolutely. So where can anyone catch Warrior on at the moment?
So in the UK, it's showing on Sky One. And then in the US, it's on Cinemax, but it's going afterwards. It'll be on HBO Max, which is streaming.
I think you can buy season 1 on Prime as well, if no one is.
Maybe, yeah. Season 2, I don't think will be on Prime, but what do I know?
Who knows? Fingers crossed. But as you said there, this isn't your first rodeo in a historical piece. And in fact, you know, with your love of history as well, they kind of go hand in hand, which is fantastic. Which draws me back to your first role, of course, which no doubt you're probably sick and tired of talking about. But this, of course, thrust you into your incredible career that you already have now, and that was playing Emily in Warhorse.
Oh, that's very kind. Yes. I mean, it was a brilliant first job. I think. I mean, it was such a fantastic experience. It's sort of one that I wished I had when I was a little bit older, or I wish I could re-experience it now to sort of soak in maybe more of the sort of skill and craftsmanship that was involved on that production. But yeah, I mean, it was a dream first role, and I think that because I was so young at the time, I don't think I quite understood how exceptional a project it was. I mean, I did insofar as I was a big fan of Michael Pergo. I mean, I used to read his books the whole time, and obviously I was familiar with Spielberg's work because you'd have to live under a rock not to be. But I think I was just really overwhelmed by being on a film set, and so I don't think I appreciated quite how exceptional it was relative to how incredible the filmmaking actually was.
Well, as you say, you were still at school when you got the role, and then not only was it Spielberg directing, but some of the cast attached to that are, absolutely iconic names: Tom Hiddleston, Benedict Cumberbatch, Jeremy Irvine. How did that experience come about for you? Because as I said, you were still at school, and probably something like this wasn't on the radar. You were doing theatre at school, and I mean, how old were you exactly?
I was 14.
Yeah, so you were at secondary school, and just exactly, soldiering on there. GCSEs are on the horizon somewhat.
Yeah,
and how did this experience come about?
So I auditioned just like any other role. I auditioned, got recalled, had a second audition with the horses in the stables, and did the classic actor white lie of I can ride horses. When I hadn't ridden many horses in my life. But and then I got the part, and it sort of happened quite strangely and unexpectedly. And my family isn't in film at all, so they sort of didn't really know what to make of it either. But we were sort of like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing this summer.
Who was your chaperone?
So my mum and my dad sort of alternated, but then I also had a chaperone when they couldn't come. I also had a chaperone who I hadn't met before, but who was lovely, called Donna. Was
that during term time, or was that conveniently in the holidays? I'm not sure.
It was during the holidays, but during term time, during the summer term, I would often at the end of school get whisked away and have horse riding lessons.
Love it.
Which is really fun. Yeah.
Which have proven very convenient in your career.
Yeah. So I've done a strange amount of horse related jobs. I can now say that I'm a decent rider. I couldn't when I first started. I definitely lied about that, but now I sort of say that with some confidence. Well, sorry.
Oh no, sorry. Carry on.
So the stables that provide the horses and the stunts for Warhorse are the same stables that did Free Rein. So
that's lovely.
That's
really nice. So talking about that audition process as well, I definitely want to talk to you about that, especially now more so with COVID and the fact that face-to-face auditions aren't necessarily going to be happening for some time, and self-tapes are very much a thing. How do you find that audition process when it's a tape compared to a face-to-face audition?
Yeah, I actually think it's a real shame that self-tapes seem to be the way that, I mean, of course, now in lockdown, there isn't really any other option, but I can sort of, self-tapes have become more and more of a thing in recent years. And I can see that this lockdown the impact that it will probably have is that self-tapes will become the norm for first round auditions, which I think is such a shame, because you lose that ability to speak about the character and figure out whether your interpretation matches the interpretation that they had in mind for the character. And you get that in the room, even with a casting director, in a way that you can't with a self-tape. But it seems to be how the world's going.
Do you feel comfortable sending off 2 different tapes to your agent and saying you take the choice, or do you want to have full creative control on what's being sent to the casting director and producers?
No, I do sometimes. It sort of depends on if I think I've got 2 different takes that both feel authentic and are different to each other.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a blueprint to how I do it necessarily. But yeah, I think getting a second opinion is not a bad idea.
Is your housemate a useful self-tape on-hand individual, or do you have to draw someone else in?
So recently with this lockdown, what I've been doing is doing them over FaceTime with people, which is really, really hard.
Oh my word.
Or trying to record the lines on, getting someone to send in the lines of the other character and recording them and having them on my laptop and pressing the space bar. But it's not ideal, to be honest.
Oh well. Fingers crossed. Yeah. I mean,
there are worse things.
There are worse issues.
Yeah.
As we talked there as well, I can't believe that it's the same stables of Warhorse to Free Rein. Of course, you were doing Free Rein whilst you were still at university, studying history. How important was it for you to make sure you still secured that degree as well?
Oh, very important. Very important. I was very interested in my degree. It wasn't like I was doing it. I mean, it's not like anyone in our industry really cares if you've got a degree or not. So it was more of a personal challenge than anything else. And I was very interested in history, and also had exposure to some people, really, really brilliant professors. So I did take it seriously because I thought, if once I've started something, I need to finish it and do it to the best of my ability. But yeah, I mean, it was sometimes quite difficult combining both filming and uni, but not impossible.
How did you find that balance then? I mean, I know that you're as you just said, you're 100% committed to everything that you put your mindset to, but drawing on, because I know how difficult a degree from the university that you attended is, not from personal experience, but from people that I know. I mean, putting in that work and finding the balance between work and study must have been quite difficult.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't even know what else to say.
No, completely. And
I think it did teach me a sort of work ethic, which I don't think I really had before. But the thing is, if you really want 2 things badly, then you do sort of make it work. I don't know how pleasant I was to be around. I'd hoped that it didn't take its toll on other people. But to be honest, I think I was just a little bit of a hermit, like had to just go to the library and when I wasn't filming, just like cram in the hours.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, I don't recommend it, but at the same time, I wouldn't do it differently.
No, of course not. And it's so important, as you say, that you wanted to do the degree, not because of anything else, because you were actually genuinely fascinated in the subject. Do you plan to continue to utilize that in the future and maybe draw in some of your writing, perhaps?
Well, my degree?
Yeah, as in talking about some of the historical periods that you studied. How else would you continue to utilize that in the future?
Maybe. Nothing that I'm writing in the minute is very historical, but who knows?
You never know. Well, let's talk. I'm really keen to talk about Free Rein, because that was one of the series that I watched in lockdown, because my horsey loving partner insisted we watch it in about a day and a half.
Well, that's very impressive.
Oh my word! Honestly, I wasn't even allowed to go to the bathroom. Honestly, no.
Oh, God,
no. I loved it. It was brilliant. It was really, really, really great. What I really want to talk about, as dream roles go, considering you then by that point you must have been horse confident pre-role.
No, I'd say that after 3 seasons of Free Rein, I'm horse
now
confident.
You are.
I don't know. I think it'd be a bit presumptuous for me to say that I'm horse confident, because I've only ever done it on horses that are trained for for the screen, and with the brilliant support of the people at Steve Dent. I definitely like horses, but I'm not a pro.
No, of course. Particularly with those horses that are trained specifically for film and TV.
Yeah.
I particularly remember a horse, I think it's in season 3, called Raven.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And that is incredible to watch when you actually see a horse like that start actually acting out badly, and that comes out on TV. How do they do that? I mean, obviously, I'm not asking you to give me the summary as a stunt horse trainer, but
I mean, I would if I could, but to be honest,
that must be amazing to watch, though. I would love to see that.
It is. It really is. I mean, they know what they're doing. It's really incredible how they can control these huge animals, and they are huge, by the way.
Are they? I mean, that particular horse looked enormous.
Yeah, and just having horses around cameras is just quite like an extraordinary thing, because there is an element of unpredictability. I guess with any animals, but
of course,
the size and strength of horses. I mean, you do need to have stunt coordinators who know what they're doing with those animals. But it is incredible to watch, and Steve Dent was definitely do.
Is there something to come from Free Rein? Can we expect anything in the future?
What, another season?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, that's the end of Free Rein.
Oh, no.
I know.
Oh, no. I'm going to have to relay the news downstairs. I'm not going to have supper tonight.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
No, I'm joking. How do you find it?
No, you never know. You never know. But I don't think so.
Well, fingers crossed. Who knows? But again, hopefully, there's plenty of things I'm sure to be working on. But in particular, how do you find it yourself, watching your own material back that you've been in? Do you feel comfortable watching your stuff back? And indeed, do you?
I will watch it, but I'll watch it once. I don't unless I don't know how helpful it is. The problem is, when you shoot something, it comes out like a year or a year and a half later, and I think there are lessons that can be drawn from watching your own performance. But I tend to always prefer the parts that I'm not in, in the things that I watch.
That's always true. That's always true. It's like when you're shooting something and actually you remember the scene that you've done, because you've done about, each shot in that scene about 4 times, and then that's taken a day. But then you don't even know what's actually going on. You've read the script, but you don't know what the other scenes look like.
Yeah.
Right. Being well credited in the industry now, and of course with your degree behind you, you've got a platform now that is great to be able to deliver and articulate it well, deliver important messages to a degree. How important do you find that, knowing that you do have this incredible education behind you, and you have a knowledge of, you just have a great knowledge of life. But how important is it to you to use your platform to talk about particular, not necessarily political movements, but to use your platform for the better?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that I'm conscious about, but it's at the same time, I'm very aware of the fact that people don't follow me to get preached at. So
I think there's a fine balance between that, though. It's not necessarily the preaching, but it's about the the raising awareness of conversations that need to be had. Yeah.
So there's certain things that I am quite, or have been in the past, quite vocal about. My younger sister is very involved in sustainable fashion, and I think that's something which, we can all have an impact in our buying choices. That's something that you can have a tangible impact by being more conscious in that way. So I do post about that, and then of course if something's very close to my heart, I will post about it. But yeah, as you say, there is a fine balance, and unless I feel that I can speak with confidence on a topic, I won't post about it, because I would feel that that's dishonest.
Of course. So we talked about your writing. Is there anything perhaps in particular that we can look forward to later in the year or 2021 from you?
What, it's something that's going to be made?
Well, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. If you may release any information, I'm sure I'd be fascinated.
The short film that I've directed is probably the closest thing to being completed. Which, I mean, it still needs to be graded, and then it'll go off maybe to some festivals, depending on how happy we all are with it. But that's a sort of, it's a silent comedy about a pregnancy scare.
Wow.
Sort of influenced by, it's a sort of mishmash of, in terms of how it's shot, of sort of Buster Keaton films with Edgar Wright's like Cornetto trilogy kind of transitions, and Love it. A very, very bright color palette. I mean, we'll see if it's any good.
That's really exciting. I really look forward to that. That sounds great.
Oh, well.
I'll keep an eye out. So I ask these two questions to everybody that comes on the show, and I'm interested to hear what you think. The first one being, as you're still young in your career, what would you say to somebody who's looking to get into the creative industries, particularly film and TV? What piece of advice would you give?
I think trying to figure out why you're interested in it and remaining true to that, and not getting caught up in all the background noise, which can be very distracting. So if you really love film, if you think that you've got something to say, or if you've got an emotional capacity that you think makes you a good actor, just remember that that's what's drawing you to it, and try and explore that, as opposed to getting caught up in, I don't know, all the trimmings that surround the industry.
And finally, what does the word headstrong mean to you?
So I think probably I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think maintaining that perspective is so important.
Celine, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. I've really enjoyed it. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to the short film, and hopefully see you on the screens in 2021.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And that's it for this episode of Headstrong. Thank you so much to you, the listener, for tuning in to this podcast. It might not be one of the mainstream podcasts, but we have some incredibly interesting guests with some truly unique and inspiring stories. So I would like to thank Celine for her engaging conversation. If you did enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and rate the podcast. And as I say, share it wherever you may want to. Every listener helps. If you have enjoyed this, I will see you next week. But until then, feel free to check out the catalogue of episodes that I've had with some incredible guests on whichever streaming platform you are listening to right now. See you next week.